In the year 2000, Universal DreamWorks decided to release a movie based on a Roman general who was forced to become a gladiator because of a jealous emperor's grudge. In 2024, they decided to make the same movie, but worse. Let me explain. So before I go on, this is a massive spoiler warning. So quick recap from the first film. A Roman general, Maximus Meridius, Marcus Aurelius really favors him. He wants to pass on the emperorhood, or whatever you want to call it, to him. Commodus doesn't like it, that incestuous little bastard he is. He sends soldiers to kill Maximus' family, makes Maximus a prisoner, sends him, puts him in the gladiator shit, whatever, Ludus. And then Maximus rises through the gladiator ranks, fights his way all the way up and hiding his identity. And then he meets his little kid, who is Lucilla's son, Lucius Verus. He meets him, inspires him, goes on to fight Commodus. And this is a drastic simplification of the first film. It's an amazing movie. It's an epic. One of my all-time favorite movies. So anyway, he kills Commodus, but also dies in the fight. He dies. A bunch of Roman political shit happens behind the scenes, and you have the dramatic ending of Maximus floating off into the field of reeds, or the field of wheat after his death, reuniting with his family, and you feel for him genuinely because you've spent the last 2 or so hours really connecting with him and the way he sees the world. You don't really necessarily notice the liberties that the movie has taken with historical Roman fact, because the story is so cohesive. It feels real. It feels like it really could have happened. It's a story that you can accept happening within the realm of the Roman world. Now, let's get to Gladiator II. This film takes the idea of taking liberties with historical fact and just throws them completely out the window. Not even just out the window. They threw them across the alleyway into the neighbor's window, and then the neighbor looked at it, wiped their ass with it, and then threw it out their window, and then it hit the street, and they got run over by a bunch of New York taxi cabs. Let me get to why real quick. So you remember that boy from the first one, the one that Maximus inspires just before his fight? That was Lucius Verus. I can accept the idea that he is somehow still alive during the events of this film because he actually, in real life, died well before Commodus did. He died as a child. So the fact that he went from a blonde-haired boy into this dark-haired guy. By the way, the actor that played that boy is still alive and looks quite similar. So why not use him? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Paul Mescal, he does fine, right? But he lacks the aura. There is a part in the film where he's talking to Denzel Washington's Macrinus or Macrinus, however the hell you want to say his name. And Denzel's character looks, I'm not calling him that, I'm just calling him Denzel, looks at him and says something about, you have rage in you and this and that. You have to harness this rage. And then it shows Paul Mescal, and he's just standing there.
You know, my friend, rage pours out of you like milk from always tipped.
Yeah, some real poetic shit there, mate. I couldn't tell his rage from his happiness. There's negative intensity coming off of him throughout the entire film. Then we get into Denzel's character, who is just Denzel Washington. There is no real change to his attitude or his dialect. He uses some of the, I guess, for lack of proper terminology, the classical stage language. There is no real character shining through in any of these characters. Joseph Quinn, he did great. I'm sure some extras did well. And let's talk about the total waste of Peter Mensah in this film. Now, anybody who knows sword and sandal type films knows who Peter Mensah is. And to waste him in the first 15 minutes of a film, it's almost unforgivable. The rest of the film just feels slow, it plods along, and you don't really have a direction. Not that I need someone to hold my hand and let me know what's happening in the film. I knew that Denzel's character wanted power. I knew he was using his political affiliations to get that power. You could barely tell what was happening throughout the film. It was almost as if the scenes or the dialogue between certain characters were unfinished. There was no real connecting tissue. This movie had no ligaments between the scenes. This feels like there's something missing. I wonder what that is. I'm not going to give a complete play-by-play of this film. but the film basically covers all the beats from the first film. His home village, or wherever he's at, gets raided by the Romans or sacked by the Romans. Now, how the Romans happen upon the exact village that he was in, it's in the script, okay? It's just leave it at that. Now, we meet his wife, or his soon-to-be wife, in the beginning of the film, throwing her at us to say, hey, here's someone that you need to care about because he cares about her, and you care about him because he's from the first film. From the opening minutes of this movie, I had a problem with it because it was telling me what I should feel, what I should like. I knew what it was. And even through the performances of even Lucilla, the actress that plays her, she feels like a completely different character. Not in a grown-up way, not in a way to where she was, wasting away in Rome for the last 16 years. It feels like she was phoning it in. Also, a waste of Pedro Pascal. I feel like his character should have had more depth, and I feel like we were robbed of that, to have him in a film where he didn't really get to shine. I like the idea of that subplot of him and Lucilla trying to overthrow the emperors. But why wait until the very end to get him and Lucius on the same page? Because when that fight happened, I didn't feel anything. There was exactly zero weight behind the death of Pedro's character. He tells Paul's character, I know who you are. I knew your dad. I would have died for him. And all of a sudden, we're supposed to just believe that the main character just says, I believe you, and I don't want to kill you. This guy destroyed your village. He is responsible for the death of your wife. We need more than just that. We need something prior that sets up this death to allow Pedro's character to just get killed off by some arrows. They needed something to force Lucius's hand into killing him anyway. Perhaps Pedro's character convinces Lucius that the gods sent me to your village to bring you to me for you to help take Rome back for the people. If you don't kill me, they're going to kill us both. I feel like the way that they did it really cheapens the entire event in the movie and really doesn't give you that cathartic payoff that you really should get from a movie like this. There's a whole movie, this guy wanted this dude dead, and then he's screaming to the crowd about his life's worth. I don't understand. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the battle segments of this film were just for the eyes. I don't remember any of the characters that he met while he was in the Ludus or while he was a prisoner. I didn't give a shit. Now, in the first movie, you go with Maximus throughout his training, his grind through the schools and up to the games. There was not really any of that in this film. I really feel like there was something missing from this film, and the film was already almost 2.5 hours long. I feel like I could rant about this movie for 2.5 hours, about how underwhelming it was. That's the word probably best describes this movie, is underwhelming. Maybe I should just watch this film and think of it as a divergent timeline. Well, in that case, you could have done anything with it. I feel the better route that the filmmakers could have taken is tell a completely different Roman-based story. Go a different route. Tell a different story within that world. Don't try to bait us with a connection to this child from the first film. Like, oh, look, here's that kid that you saw for a few minutes that you kind of cared about in the first movie. Let's follow him. We didn't need that story. Even in a divergent timeline, after the death of Commodus and Maximus, another ruler took place that was just as bad. And they probably would have wanted to get rid of the child and Lucilla, which in real life, Lucilla was murdered. She was assassinated, executed. And we waited 24 years for this. And I didn't need a sequel. But like I said, if you were going to give us a sequel, tell a different story that deserves to be told. And that's what really bothers me here, is this story didn't need to be told. It was useless. What am I going to do with this information? Nothing. This is just a movie full of hollow spectacle. I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to say this, but this movie is kind of dog shit. It's whack. I have to give it, I'm not going to give it an F. The fight scenes were, honestly, a little bit slow compared to some of the sword work in the first film. I feel like they went over the top to get you to kind of ignore that. And the fact that you had a lead with no aura. This movie, to me, gets a D+ for visual effects. That's about it. I feel like they rushed it. They had 24 years to get this right, and they rushed it, and they just gave it to us anyway. My opinion, don't waste your time on this. Just watch the first one again. You'll be much happier afterwards.
What we doing live echoes in eternity.